whispers of your uniqueness have traveled far, reaching places and ears you never imagined. They've sparked curiosity, disbelief, and even fear. But now someone has dared to dig deeper. A private investigator, driven by questions no one else could answer, set out to uncover the truth about you. What they found left them stunned, unable to reconcile the ordinary image they had with the extraordinary reality beneath. This is not about secrets you've kept, but about the divine fingerprint Yeshua himself has left on your life. A fingerprint so intricate, so otherworldly, that even the most skeptical mind cannot deny its existence. It all started as a simple assignment. The private investigator, known for their unrelenting pursuit of truth, received a case unlike any they'd encountered before. The client, shrouded in mystery, was adamant that there was more to you than met the eye. They spoke of strange occurrences, unexplainable moments, and a resilience that defied logic. What was it about you that made waves wherever you went? They wondered. The investigator wasn't interested in myths or superstitions. To them, it was just another case, until it wasn't. Every step forward seemed to lead them to dead ends or evidence too bizarre to categorize. Neighbors described you as kind but distant, someone who carried an air of mystery but never caused harm. Friends mentioned how you had a way of seeing things others couldn't. Some even whispered about moments when you appeared to defy odds that should have crushed you. Curiosity turned into obsession. The investigator dug deeper, uncovering small details others had overlooked. A series of near-impossible achievements scattered throughout your life, moments where everything should have fallen apart, but didn't. Times when others failed, but you thrived. Even the skeptic in them couldn't dismiss the growing evidence that there was something more, something they couldn't explain. Then came the records. Old documents, photographs, and traces of your journey that painted a picture far different from what anyone expected. There were connections to events and people that seemed too coincidental to be accidents. People from your past spoke of transformations that bordered on miraculous, challenges you overcame without breaking, battles you won without lifting a hand. The investigator began to notice a pattern. Wherever you went, things shifted. Situations that seemed impossible turned in your favor, not by chance, but by something greater. Was it luck, divine favor, or something entirely unknown? Even your adversaries, those who tried to pull you down, left behind breadcrumbs of confusion. They spoke of attempts to sabotage your path that mysteriously failed. Doors that should have been locked suddenly opened for you. Battles meant to crush you ended in victory you never sought. The investigator couldn't ignore it any longer. This wasn't ordinary, and yet the more they uncovered, the less they seemed to know. Each revelation was a doorway leading to another unanswered question. What was protecting you? Who was guiding you through obstacles meant to destroy you? The investigator found themselves staring at a crossroads. They could dismiss it all as coincidence, or face the undeniable reality that your life wasn't like anyone else's. Their search was no longer about solving a mystery. It had become about understanding the force behind it. As their findings grew, so did the sense that this was only the beginning. What lay ahead was far more complex than they could have imagined. There was no turning back now. As the investigator delved further, they began to uncover layers of your story that were almost impossible to believe. What started as whispers in the wind became undeniable pieces of evidence. These weren't just coincidences. They were moments that seemed to defy the natural order. At first glance, your life seemed ordinary, mundane even, but the deeper they looked, the more extraordinary the truth became. There were records of events that baffled everyone who encountered them. Situations where the odds were stacked against you, yet you emerged not just unscathed, but triumphant. For instance, there was the time when a major setback threatened to derail everything you worked for, yet somehow the very obstacle turned into an opportunity. Those who tried to harm you often found themselves undone by their own schemes. Then there were the encounters. People in your life who crossed paths with you often left transformed, as if a piece of their journey had been rewritten. Some described you as having a calming presence, a force that seemed to reset the chaos around them. Even those who didn't understand it couldn't deny that something about you was different. The investigator couldn't ignore the pattern. It wasn't just about resilience or luck. There was a force at work here, something unseen but undeniably real. They began to notice that your life wasn't shaped by the usual forces of chance or circumstance. Instead, it seemed as though every step you took was guided, every decision aligning with a greater purpose. As they pieced together fragments of your story, a new question began to take shape. Was it possible that you were part of something much bigger? Something that no investigator, no matter how skilled, could fully comprehend? The signs were everywhere, but they weren't written in the language of logic. One night, while poring over their notes, they came across an account from someone in your past who spoke about a particular moment that sent chills down their spine. It was like they knew what was going to happen before it did, the person had said. They walked into the fire without fear, and when they came out, they didn't even smell like smoke. It was then the investigator began to wonder if this was more than just human resilience. Could it be divine intervention? The subtle, undeniable hand of Yeshua guiding and shielding you through life's storms? After all, who else could orchestrate events with such precision, turning what seemed like losses into undeniable victories? The more they considered it, the more they realized how interconnected everything was. The seemingly random threads of your life wove a tapestry so intricate it couldn't have been accidental. Even the struggles, the darkest moments, seemed to serve a purpose. Every trial became a testimony, every failure a stepping stone. As the investigation progressed, one theme became clear. Your presence left a mark on everyone you encountered. Those who met you couldn't always articulate it, but they felt it. An aura of calm strength and unshakable purpose that defied explanation. Even in the chaos of life, you exuded a peace that made people stop and take notice. The investigator collected accounts from people who had interacted with you, some briefly and others over the course of years. They spoke of moments when you stood firm in situations that would have broken most. A former colleague recalled a crisis at work where everyone panicked, yet you remained composed, as though you could see a solution that hadn't yet appeared. It was like they were tapped into something the rest of us couldn't see, they said, shaking their head in disbelief. This wasn't just confidence. It was something deeper. It was as if you carried a light within you that darkness couldn't dim. And it wasn't only about how you handled adversity, it was the way you made others feel. People often walked away from conversations with you feeling uplifted, even if the topics were heavy. You had a way of bringing clarity to confusion, hope to despair, and strength to weakness. The investigator began to notice a strange consistency in these stories. It wasn't just that you overcame challenges or helped others see the light in their own darkness. It was that you seemed untouchable by forces that should have brought you down. This unshakable nature wasn't rooted in arrogance, but in something profoundly humble. At first, the investigator assumed it was a combination of natural charisma and personal discipline. But as they dug deeper, they realized there was more to it. Something about you transcended human effort alone. Even the investigator, who prided themselves on objectivity, began to feel the pull of your aura, as if your story was awakening something within them. A particular account stood out in their research. One person shared how they had tried to manipulate or harm you, but found their inexplicably. It was like their strength came from somewhere else, they admitted reluctantly. No matter what I tried, it backfired, and I couldn't touch them. It made me question everything. The investigator couldn't ignore the pattern. What was it that shielded you? Where did this unshakable aura come from? A quiet answer began to form in their mind, one they were hesitant to entertain. Perhaps this wasn't of earthly origin. As they wrestled with this idea, their thoughts turned to the ancient teachings they'd heard but never fully embraced. Could it be that the source of your strength was something divine? That your life reflected the influence of Yeshua, who promised peace beyond understanding and strength that transcends human limitations? The deeper the investigator delved into your life, the more they began to see a pattern that couldn't be ignored. Traces of the divine woven intricately into your journey. It wasn't just about the miraculous escapes or uncanny victories. It was the way each step seemed to align with a purpose far greater than you could have orchestrated on your own. Every life has its share of challenges, but your path carried an element of intentionality that defied explanation. The investigator uncovered moments where, by all accounts, you should have been defeated. Times when doors slammed shut in your face, only for windows to swing open in ways no one could predict. One particular story stood out. Years ago, you faced a betrayal so deep it could have shattered anyone's spirit. Someone close to you turned their back, leaving you stranded at a critical moment. By all logic, that should have been the end of your journey. But instead, something extraordinary happened. The very act meant to destroy you became the catalyst for your next breakthrough. The investigator found a journal entry from someone who witnessed that moment. It was almost eerie, the entry read. They didn't break. It was like they knew something we didn't.
Hello, children of God.
Can't explain it. As the investigators sifted through these accounts, they couldn't ignore the subtle, recurring thread. Your strength wasn't your own. Time and again, people described moments when it seemed as though an unseen force stepped in, redirecting your path, shielding you from harm, and elevating you beyond what anyone thought possible. The investigator's mind turned to ancient teachings, stories of divine intervention, and promises of guidance for those who walked with faith. A verse they had once dismissed now echoed in their thoughts. The steps of a righteous person are ordered by the Lord. Could it be that your life was proof of this truth? That Yeshua himself had been walking alongside you, ordering your steps, turning your setbacks into setups for something greater? Even the investigator, with their analytical approach, couldn't deny that the evidence pointed to something extraordinary. It wasn't just resilience or coincidence. It was as though your life bore the fingerprints of divine craftsmanship. But why? Why you? This question lingered in their mind as they pieced together the fragments of your story. What made you stand out in a world full of struggles and triumphs? As they wrestled with these thoughts, they found themselves drawn to an undeniable conclusion. Your journey wasn't just about you. The victories, the breakthroughs, and even the challenges weren't for your benefit alone. They were part of a larger story, one that pointed back to the source of your strength. The investigator had seen many unusual cases, but this one was unlike anything they had ever encountered. No matter how much they uncovered about your life, the more it seemed as though the answers eluded them. Yet, what they could see was undeniable. A life marked by resilience, purpose, and a protection that defied reason. As they pieced together your journey, the investigator began to feel something they hadn't anticipated. Awe. This was no longer a matter of curiosity or professional duty. It was becoming deeply personal. Each new piece of information felt like a glimpse into a larger truth, something that resonated far beyond the boundaries of logic. It wasn't just your ability to overcome adversity that captivated them. It was the timing, the precision with which events unfolded around you. They came across a story of a near catastrophic event that should have derailed everything. Yet, at the last possible moment, the situation turned in your favor. A chance meeting, a sudden opportunity, elements that seemed random to others but looked intentional to the investigator. Why does this keep happening? They muttered to themselves late one night, surrounded by piles of notes and photographs. The answer whispered back, not from the evidence but from within their own thoughts. Because it's not random. As they revisited their notes, one thread stood out more prominently than before. The repeated testimonies of those who believed there was something divine at work in your life. Words like blessed, anointed, and guided appeared time and again, often from people who didn't even know one another. The investigator wasn't a religious person by nature, but this case was forcing them to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Could it be that your life was a reflection of a higher power at work? A divine plan unfolding in real time? A memory surfaced unbidden. Years ago, during a particularly dark time in their own life, someone had shared a passage with them. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. At the time, they had dismissed it as comforting words with no real substance. But now, as they studied your life, that verse took on a new meaning. Was it possible that the same guiding hand described in those ancient words was the one orchestrating your journey? If so, It explained so much. The protection, the timing, the seemingly miraculous outcomes. It also raised new questions. Why were you chosen for this path? What was the purpose behind it all? The investigator couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something profound. Your story wasn't just about you. It was a glimpse into something far greater, and perhaps in uncovering your truth they were being called to confront their own. The investigator's thoughts kept circling back to a single unavoidable question. What was driving the extraordinary events in your life? They had examined every angle, luck, coincidence, and even sheer willpower, but none of it seemed sufficient to explain what they were uncovering. The evidence pointed to something beyond human understanding, and though they hesitated to admit it, they couldn't ignore the possibility that Yeshua's hand was guiding your story. One night, in a quiet moment of reflection, the investigator recalled a phrase they had heard but never given much thought to. He goes before you, making crooked paths straight. It struck them how perfectly this described your life. Time and again you had faced obstacles that should have been insurmountable, yet they were cleared away with precision, as if someone had gone ahead of you, paving the way. There was the time you were cornered by circumstances, with no apparent way out. The investigator read account after account of people who witnessed the situation and were sure it would end badly. Yet, not only did you emerge unscathed, but the very problem seemed to dissolve, leaving everyone around you in stunned silence. One witness had said, "It was like watching the Red Sea part. There was no other explanation." The investigator couldn't help but see parallels to the stories of Yeshua from the ancient texts they had brushed aside in their youth. The miracles, the moments of divine intervention, the way Yeshua walked among the people and changed lives with a touch or a word. It felt eerily familiar. They began to wonder if your story was, in some way, an echo of those ancient miracles. As they dug deeper, they found more connections. One particular account stood out, shared by someone who had been close to you during a trying time. They described how, in the face of betrayal, you displayed forgiveness and grace that seemed almost superhuman. It wasn't just forgiveness, the person had said. It was like they saw something in me that I couldn't even see in myself. That kind of love isn't natural. It has to come from somewhere greater. The investigator paused, rereading the statement. This wasn't just about you overcoming challenges. It was about the way your life reflected something larger. Whispers of your uniqueness have traveled far, reaching places and ears you never imagined. They've sparked curiosity, disbelief, and even fear.